Hello and welcome to Connect, the weekly podcast of the California MBA featuring one-on-one interviews with movers and shakers in the mortgage industry. I'm Susan Milazzo, CEO of the California MBA, and I'm very happy that you could join us today. Before we get to today's guest, I'd like to thank our Connect podcast sponsor, Incelerate.
Thanks, Susan, and thanks for listening. This is Josh Wren, CEO and founder of Incelerate. We're grateful for our partnership with the CMB and are committed as a company to help lenders close more loans. We do this with our customer experience platform that has a CRM, lead management, marketing, automation, robust content library, desktop and mobile applications. We do this to help you engage and stay connected to your current borrowers, referral partners, past borrowers, and potential new ones. If you want to find out why we're the fastest growing CRM provider in the mortgage industry, please reach out to us and ask for a demo.
Okay, thank you, Josh. We appreciate your support. And that brings me to today's very special guest. I am happy to welcome Dan Phelan with PSRS. Hi, Dan.
Hi, how are you today?
I am fantastic. It is very special for me to have Dan as a guest on Connect. I've known Dan for a number of years, and he was on the California MBA board when I was hired all those many years ago. So Dan and I go way back. I thought on today's podcast, we talk a little bit about his experience in the industry, but also throw in a little history of our association, because it's always a good thing to remind people of where we came from. So Dan, we'll just go ahead and get started. Give us a little background on how you got into the mortgage industry.
Well, I think all of us take interesting paths into this industry. When I started in the business, and really through the 70s, 80s, maybe even the 90s, you couldn't go to school for mortgage banking. You just happened into it. You maybe were in finance, or in my case, psychology, and you just happened upon it and decided it worked for you, and away you went. So I graduated from Creighton University in Omaha back in 1973 and decided that I needed to see the world. And one of my first stops was California, and I stopped in to see Dan and Mary Mulvihill. This was in May of 1973. And Dan Mulvihill took me in, and I visited them for some time. Dan was my uncle. Dan's passed away recently, but he said, "You know what? You ought to come down to the office with me and see what I do." I said, "Okay." So I literally spent a whole day just sitting in the corner, listening to what Dan did in his leading his mortgage banking company, which he had only started a year before. The company started in 1972, and we're celebrating our 50th anniversary this year.
That's right. That's right. Congratulations.
And so I just kind of listened, and at the end of the day, he said, "What do you think?" And I said, this has been really fascinating, because he was talking with lenders and he was talking with borrowers, and they were negotiating deals and they were going back and forth. And I thought, this is kind of interesting. And he said, "Well, how would you like to come out and go to work with?" And I said, "Not ready to go to work yet." So I turned him down. So that was in May. I was out traveling the world, and anyway, 5 months and 32,000 miles later, I got back to Des Moines, and I thought, that wasn't such a bad offer. And I called him up, and he said, "Come on out, let's get to work." And the rest is history.
Wow. All those years with the same company too. I mean, it's your family business, but I mean, that's impressive.
Well, one of the things that Dan built, and I think a lot of different mortgage banking companies are different. They have different aspects within them. Maybe they have insurance areas, or maybe they have appraisal areas, or maybe they do some development as well, or something like that, in addition to the mortgage banking. Dan represented a number of life insurance companies, and they wanted him to do development. They wanted him to do joint ventures. They wanted him to do mortgages, obviously. And so Dan threw me into the weeds and said, go start learning. And so I did property management, and I did development, and I did all these different things, and tried out the mortgage banking. I really liked that. I liked the aspect of being in front of both the borrower and the lender, negotiating deals, putting deals together, having things come to fruition. And so by the end of the late 70s, I was doing mortgage banking, and I've done it ever since.
50 short years later, right?
50 short years later, there you go.
Well, as I had mentioned at the beginning, Dan, you've had just an incredible career that spans decades. You've served in leadership of both the National MBA as well as California MBA, served as our board chair, National MBA chair. And I would love to have you share a little bit of history about our association. I think that it's important to remember how we started. We were actually started by the commercial
Right.
mortgage banking industry. I think there's so much focus on residential because they take so much of our legislative bandwidth. But the association was started by the commercial mortgage banking industry, and I love to share with our listeners a little history on the association.
Sure, sure. Well, when I got involved, well, one of the things that Dan Mulvihill did was he said, if you're going to take on this job and you be involved in the business, you have to get involved in the industry. And it was very important to him. And he
Wow.
was a huge proponent of getting involved in the association, getting involved in various organizations, and really stressed that that was important if this was going to be your career. And I decided very early on that this was going to be my career. So my first foray into the industry was to go through the School of Mortgage Banking, through the MBA, and to get my CMB, which I did very early on, because I felt it was important to the industry to show that I was committed to the industry and I wanted to take on the designations of the industry to show what I was doing. But I in California, I mean, started in San Diego Mortgage Bankers. We had a very strong group. And one thing that I should point out that really until the year 2000s, when we met as an organization, we met as both residential and commercial people.
Yeah.
It was both groups. Yes, it was started by a group of commercial people, but very early on, they brought the residential guys and gals in, and said, it's important that we band together to to support the industry, to lead the industry, um, you know, make sure we did the things that caused us to be um, ethical and all of those kinds of things, so we didn't have to be regulated. And I think all these many years later, we're still in that kind of taking care of ourselves and making sure that we're doing the right things, and all of our members are doing the right things. I mean,
Right.
that was a big part of both CMBA and MBA. And so, I just got involved. I got on a committee. I got on the commercial committee. I got on the educational committee. Did that for a couple of years, rose to committee chair, and then got asked to be on the board. And I was on the board for a number of years, and then ultimately became the chair of CMBA. And it was about that time that a number of people started to say, hey, you need to get involved in the national organization as well. And I said, I can do both, you know. And so was involved there again, committee level, uh, board level. Um, and I had a very defining moment, other than being involved in the industry, being involved in the commercial side, being the chair of COMBOG as well as the chair of CMBA. In 2000, I got involved in a project where MBA gave basically a committee that I was going to put together $1 million to invest in uh, bringing the awareness of commercial real estate, commercial mortgage banking to the industry. And we went out and did grants to 5 universities ultimately.
Hmm.
All of them ended up creating either departments or curriculum for commercial real estate. University of San Diego down here in San Diego was one. Mark Reedy, former, president of MBA, now on staff at the University of San Diego, was one of the 5 universities. But for me, that was a defining moment, because one of the things it told me that education was going to be a key part of people coming into our industry and
Right.
people succeeding in our industry, as well as advancing in our industry. And I really got heavily involved in the whole educational aspect of it from then on.
And, I think, having the industry take responsibility for providing that education and making sure that it is available is really key. Kind of leads me to my next question, which, the real estate finance industry is always looking to increase diversity. So how is, PSRS even attracting younger mortgage professionals into commercial mortgage banking?
Well, I'll digress just for a moment. In 1998, I and a couple of other individuals, Scott Tanner, who you knew well,
Mm-hmm.
we bought the company from Dan, and at that point in time, we decided that we were a company of producers, 75% of which were over 50 years old, white, male,
Yeah.
period. And we knew that that was not a sustainable model. So it just was not going to work. We had to start bringing young people in, and we really started in 1998 to do that, to accomplish that. And over the next 10 years, I think we worked very hard at bringing a lot of young people into the industry, both men and women. Unfortunately, probably more men than women. Because we didn't find enough women available to come into this. Fast forward to today, I think that whole thing has changed. I think there are a lot of women today that are very qualified, graduated with finance degrees or degrees in real estate, and are very interested and excited to get into our industry. So fast forward today, we're probably 75% of our company today is under 40. So big turnaround.
Big turnaround.
We're now a multi-generational company. We're kind of on the 3rd generation as I come to the end of my career. And by the way, next year is my last year. I will have been in the industry for 50 years, and as you said, in one company and one job, and I never had to go for an interview. I just, I never had to create a resume. It's always interesting when I'm teaching classes and they say, well, what should I do when I go for an interview? Or what should I have in my resume? I said, I never had to create one. And they're just
You're like, ask somebody who's done it.
Yeah. So, but if you get started with one company, then you don't have to worry about it for the rest of your career, right? So,
There you go.
So today we have a couple women producers. In the commercial side, we have probably 25% of our company are women. We have about 10 to 15% are Hispanic. We would like to increase those numbers. We are looking for more people. We've been hiring clearly young people, young qualified people who want to get into our industry. And I think that's really important. And I think it's a great time for both women and minorities to come into our industry, because so many companies are focused on that. And they're not just focused on getting them into, analyst positions or servicing positions. They're really interested in getting them into producer positions, officer positions, people who can have a say in what's going on. Because, the ownership of real estate has changed. A lot of real estate today, especially in Southern California, is owned by women and various people. And I hate to say the word minority, but because the Hispanic community is a huge part of Southern California, and so those are our borrower. That's our borrower makeup, and they're going to want to do business with people they're comfortable with. And my daughter, who has been working with me been working with me for 8 years, is now in a production role, and she's finding so many people who, especially women, who want to do business with her because they feel like they can understand, she can understand them.
Right.
And it's always been a great part of our business to make sure that we can understand our borrowers' needs and wants and deliver on those. And so, we have a lot of different borrowers, so we need to have a lot of different people.
Right. And it's great that, the company continues to kind of, develop as far as, diversity within the age and all the participants that you have at PSRS. So talk about, this market in 2022 is a little bit of a tough market. What asset classes do you see that are faring perhaps better than others this year?
Well, I mean, to start with, just to look at the market, obviously the market's been heavily impacted with um, um, rate increases. We've seen commercial mortgage rates go from the high twos to the low threes late last year to over 5% today.
Yeah.
Um, and and borrowers are talking to us and saying, hey, can you get me something at 4 3/4 or 4 5/8 or 4 7/8 or 5%? And it wasn't 5 months ago we were talking about 290, 310, whatever. So huge change. We, as a company, we've had a good first 6 months. I think we've closed over $1 billion worth of mortgages, or $1 billion worth of mortgages. Yes, sorry. And so it's been a very good first half. I think our second half will be a little slower. And I'm very concerned about what's going to happen next year, because I
Mm,
think it's going to slow down even more. As far as property types, the verdict's not yet in on office. What is office going to look like in the future?
yeah.
We keep, we went from everybody was in, majority was working in office, very few remote people. COVID hits, we all go home. We all figure out how to work at home. Um, we start to come back, and a lot of companies say, well, gee, we're going to let you, work remote if you want to, or maybe we're going to go hybrid or so on and so forth. We want you in 2 or 3 days a week, and you can work 2 or 3 days from home, and so on and so forth. And I think that's still evolving. I hear a number of companies who are talking, most recently saying that, we don't know if the hybrid model works for us. Maybe for some of the functions of our company. Um, but I got to tell you, the segment of the industry who most wants to come back to the office are the young people. And they want to be in the office because they understand that that's how they're going to learn the business.
Oh,
They're going to learn
very
the business by word of mouth. We moved in some new space in 2018, and we reconfigured it all so that the production people were kind of in a horseshoe, and all the analyst people are in the middle. And most of the day, we find ourselves in the bullpen, kind of talking about deals and sharing information and asking what lenders we should talk to on this deal or that deal, and how do we get this done. And it's right in the middle of where all of our analysts slash future producers are. And I got to tell you, they're in there every day. They're listening to what's going on. They're coming in and asking questions. Quite often, I'll be on the phone talking to a lender or borrower, negotiating a deal, so on and so forth. And as soon as I hang up, one of the junior producers or analysts is in my office saying, "Hey, can I ask you what you were talking about?" So
definitely, yeah, something that
that
doesn't
aspect
translate
is,
well to a virtual environment, right? That in
oh yeah,
person.
and the virtual environment, you lose all of that. You
Yeah.
lose all of that. And so the verdict's not in yet. But I got to tell you, and I talked to a lot of people whose sons and daughters are getting into the business or getting into other aspects of business and so on and so forth. And one of the most frustrating things they do is they're looking really forward to going to work, and they get to work and nobody's there,
Yeah.
or the people they report to are remote that day, or whatever it is. So um, I think it's important for succession of the industry for us to be involved and be there, pass that along in a way, pass it along, bringing up you. But I think the best way of doing that is going to be, being in the office and so on and so forth. And, quite frankly, I just think we're more productive. Um, Again, our servicing staff, and we service, 6.5 billion. They're on kind of a hybrid schedule. They work from home 2 days a week, 2 to 3 days a week, and they're in the office 2 to 3 days a week. And every Wednesday, everybody's in, and so on and so forth. And it's a little harder to work with, and it's a little harder sometimes to get answers, but it seems to be working okay. Obviously, we've hired. One of the things that COVID has taught us is that people are more elastic and they move from company to company. And I think we've hired more people in the last year than we hired the previous 10 years.
Wow, that's saying something.
And in talking to a lot of people in the industry, they've gone through the same thing. And people have gone to other companies, or, decided they want to work 100% remote, or, want to move to another part of the country because, because of family, because of whatever. COVID has shown them that that's maybe a more important part of their life. So, so there are a lot of people have made a lot of changes during that period of time. And as I say, we're still working through that. So that's a long-winded way of saying, we haven't found the answer for office yet.
Yeah.
Although, life science is growing like crazy down in San Diego, being the third largest market in the country behind Boston and the Bay Area. Regular office seems to be fairly well occupied. We're not building anything new, but fairly well occupied. So, lenders are concerned about that. Multi-tenant office space, I think, is faring better than large plate office space,
Hmm.
where, they're releasing whole floors at a time and so on and so forth. So, that's a product type that's kind of, we're not quite there. Obviously, retail has come back a lot. Actually, every center that I think we had problems with or challenges with in 2000 through 2001 today. The retailers are back. Restaurants are coming back to life. Um, all of them are holding on to that sidewalk space. Nobody
Yeah.
wants to let go of that, of the extra tables and so on and so forth. And quite frankly, for San Diego, it's great
Yeah.
because there's nothing better than being able to eat outdoors. And San Diego is, it works very well year round to be able to do that. Um, Obviously, the hottest sectors are multifamily and industrial. I think that multifamily, continues to grow. There continues to be a lot of new projects being built, and industrial. I'm concerned that maybe we've hit that saturation point. Maybe we haven't. I'm not quite. Time will tell. I read an article not too long ago, like maybe Monday, that Amazon was not taking on any new space. They were not expanding their warehouses. Other distributors were looking at the same thing, so maybe they saturated space. So, time will tell on that, but, clearly a lot of industrial has been developed over the last few years, and all of it is occupied. The occupancy levels are very strong and all that. The other sector that, amazing to me has been super strong is self-storage.
Hmm.
Self-storage continues to be very strong.
Yeah.
New projects getting built all the time, and they seem to fill up very quickly. Um, the other, obviously, I talked about life science. Life science is getting built in every sector. We're seeing in a number of areas around San Diego where buildings are being torn down to build a new life science building. Um, and quite frankly, San Diego is going through a transition that I think Southern California probably is as well, but San Diego, obviously I'm closer to. San Diego has fairly limited boundaries with the ocean, the mountains, and Pendleton, New Mexico. We don't have a lot of excess land anymore. I mean, basically it's all been built out.
True. Yeah.
So all the new development is redevelopment. So it's tearing down to put up new apartments, or tearing down to put up life science, or tearing down to maybe put a new retail use in, or so on and so forth. And with that has come a whole new generation of developers. And they're men and women, and they're young, and they're fresh out of college, or they've been working with another development company for 10 years, and they're starting out on their own. And it really is a time similar to when I started in the business in the early to late 80s, when all these new developers started developing, and they were all my clients, and they've been my clients for all these years. And now that's changing over. Now a lot of those people are retiring, they're selling off their portfolios, their sons or daughters are taking over their development companies or investment companies. So we're just seeing a lot of new young entrepreneurs coming into San Diego to develop real estate, and which is exciting, and it bodes well for our young producers because they all speak the same language.
Yeah, yeah, make that connection. Nice to have the fresh ideas and the fresh outlook on things too as well. You're talking about new and kind of the impacts of COVID, and one of the things that, as you know, I've been doing this job for a good long while now, and I have just seen a real uptick in technology solutions for the commercial real estate finance side of the industry. Residential, because they're consumer facing, they have a lot more technology, but there just seems like a lot more technology that's available on the commercial side. So I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on how is the adoption of technology working in the commercial industry?
Well, I mean, clearly, different aspects of technology we adopted a long time ago, and we'll continue to adopt that. And we'll, especially in the servicing area, servicing software, being able to monitor loans, I mean, we couldn't do that without the software and technology that we have today. A lot of that is up in the cloud. Borrowers can interface directly with their documents on our servers, and so on and so forth. And that's all changed. It's a far cry from when I started in the business, when our servicing technology was a 3x5 card with the borrower's name on the top and 360 blanks on it so we could check if their payments were made. So, the technology has changed just a little bit since that time. I think as it relates to data, making data available, CoStar, for instance, we really couldn't do our job without CoStar and some of the other products that are out there today. We can look up, borrower information. We can look up recorded information. We can track properties. We can see, what occupancies in different markets across the country. At my screen, I can look at Boston or New York or Dallas or Des Moines and tell you what the occupancy for apartments or retail or industrial are. Technology has allowed us to maybe go outside of our footprint, where forever we were just really in our footprint. We were experts in our market, and we kind of stayed in that arena. Now we're branching out. Still probably 65 to 70% of the business we do is in Southern California, including, Phoenix and Las Vegas. But 30 to 35% is across the country. And we have the ability to do business in those areas. There have been a lot of technology companies, and a technology company recently acquired George Smith Financial, trying to look at, how they can, leverage off of each other to do whatever that they do. And I could be wrong, but I have not seen technology being able to take the place of someone to go out and kick the tires and look at the real estate and meet face to face with the borrower and say, this is a really good deal.
Right.
And when I think back to Dan Mulvihill back in this was back in the 70s and 80s, and basically he'd go sit down with this borrower, they'd talk about a deal, and he says, this is what I'll deliver. They shook hands, and that was the contract.
Deal with
The
done.
same with our life companies. It was they had faith in what we did. We had credibility with them. They knew that we would not take advantage of them. We always looked at the money we were lending for our investors as our own money, and tried to treat it that way. And I think that's still today. I think the mortgage, the individual, brings a lot of credibility to this industry, and I've seen no technology that takes the place of that.
Yeah, technology, but more assisting in the development of the deal
Right.
structure, but there's still that, that's still a relationship business, right?
Right. All of our packages today, our loan packages, they're all delivered electronically. We
Yeah.
used to, well, I kid my younger producers on the first deal I did in 1973, where it was a 7-Eleven anchored center for $250,000. It was a huge loan, and I drove up to Riverside and looked at the real estate, 2 pictures, because that's all I could send was 2 pictures, and then filled out this 2-page form, and I airmailed it to Hartford, to Connecticut Mutual. Took 4 days to get there. They looked at it, called me up on the phone, said, "Looks great. Go ahead and issue a commitment." I issued the commitment, got it signed, airmailed that back to the investor. I got the loan documents drafted, sent them back for their signature, took them to the borrower for their signature, and after waiting literally 10 to 12 days, we closed the loan in less than 30 days. Now, today we can't close the loan in under 90 days. So where has technology gotten us? No, just kidding. Obviously, a lot of, original loan documents were a page and a half for the deed of trust and a half page for the note. And today the note is 10 pages and the deed of trust is 60 pages. So anyway, the world has changed and we've
Yeah.
changed with it. And
Isn't
we need to protect our investors, and all of those things come into play, and all the reports we do, and appraisals, environmental engineering, all of those things to protect our investors. So the world's changed and we've gone along with it. But anyway, that was the process then, and here we are today.
It's fun to hear those, that's the way it used to work, and it all, it's certainly a much different world today, but it's good for everybody to hear about how it used to be done as well.
There you go.
Talked earlier about your leadership roles, both at the National MBA and at the California MBA. You talk with our listeners a little bit about the importance of supporting the national and state mortgage bankers associations.
Well, I think now more than ever, government is in our lives. I mean, Susan, you fight that battle up on the Hill in Sacramento. MBA fights that battle on the Hill in DC, and we have to get involved. You have to get involved because it's not the 80s or the 90s or the 2000s. They're now, making decisions that affect our business. It's, how taxes are going to get handled, how 1031 transactions are going to get handled, how residential mortgage bankers are going to be dictated to, and Fannie and Freddie and all of that. And if it isn't for both CMBA and MBA watching over what's trying to be done to us and making sure that we're aware of it and can get involved in the solution, we're all going to be out of a job. So I mean, you really have to focus on that. And CMBA and MBA are no more than its members. It's not just staff. Staff doesn't make this happen. It's really the individuals who get involved, go to the Hill on Advocacy Day and talking with, our legislators and our congressmen, getting a one-to-one relationship with them, getting involved in CAMPAC and MORPAC, getting involved in Mortgage Action Alliance,
Right.
so that we can get the word out. If you don't get involved, you won't have an industry to be involved in. That's what I firmly believe. And we have, I've pushed that down to our people. Mike Tanner took over as president of PSRS about a year and a half ago. Mike is on the board at MBA and really got involved. We've got younger people who are pushing to get involved. David Smiley from our office is on the board at CMBA. So it's always been important that we get involved, and we've always carried that torch forward. And if you don't do it and you're out of a job, you have no one to blame but yourself.
That's true. People need to be reminded that they need to support these associations that support the industry in which they've made their careers. So
Right.
Thank you for that. I appreciate that. And Dan, just all the years I've known you, thank you so much for all of your contributions to help make the California MBA as successful as we are. You are a example of a true leader in the industry. I wish I had more of you.
There you go.
And thank you all for joining us on today's episode of Connect. If you'd like to access any of our past episodes, you can follow us on our YouTube channel. We're also available on SoundCloud, Apple Podcast, and Spotify. That's it for this week, and we'll see you next time on Connect.